From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I am Keith Allen and welcoming you to this Thursday's edition of For the People for May the 25th, 2017. President Trump over in Brussels, and today a very important message. Now, of course, the left don't think so. Of course, they're not going to like anything that Donald Trump has to say, but that's neither here or there. But what Donald Trump had to say was pretty much blunt. That's Donald Trump. He's blunt. It may not be the most eloquent of speeches, and I don't think that people really want or elected Donald Trump to be eloquent, and though he cleans up well, they weren't looking for that. They wanted somebody that was a disruptor, somebody that could give it to them blunt. And these folks at NATO are not really used to having that. These are silver spoon people. Now, you could argue that Donald Trump has lived a charmed life, but he's not like them. He does not act like them, and he is not a politician. And we're wondering if it was effective. Now, calling out, 29 countries that don't really support, more or less, NATO and the efforts, and the backdrop to this whole thing was really just an oxymoron. You have to listen to the speech. But the NATO building with the flags, okay, to house those flags, over $1 billion to build, okay? And we're flipping the bill, the United States of America, where maybe there's 8 or 9 countries contributing a little something, but not near enough. And Donald Trump did mention that in his speech, amongst other things. A very powerful speech. I'd like to take your calls today. So here, write down the number, 813-423-TALK, if you'd like to weigh in on any of the subject matter we're going to talk about. One of the subjects, British police are stopping the information shared with the U.S. on this Manchester attack. Massive leaks in the White House and in government. What's going on? A huge investigation. We're going to be talking about that and a lot more on today's For the People. Here's Donald Trump at NATO a little while ago.
Secretary General Stoltenberg, Chancellor Merkel, thank you very much. Other heads of state and government, I am honored to be here with members of an alliance that has promoted safety and peace across the world. Prime Minister May, all of the nations here today grieve with you and stand with you. I would like to ask that we now observe a moment of silence for the victims and families of the savage attack which took place in Manchester. Thank you. Terrible thing. This ceremony is a day for both remembrance and resolve. We remember and mourn those nearly 3,000 innocent people who were brutally murdered by terrorists on September 11th, 2001. Our NATO allies responded swiftly and decisively, invoking for the first time in its history the Article 5 collective defense commitments. The recent attack on Manchester in the United Kingdom demonstrates the depths of the evil we face with terrorism. Innocent little girls and so many others were horribly murdered and badly injured while attending a concert, beautiful lives with so much great potential, torn from their families forever and ever. It was a barbaric and vicious attack upon our civilization. All people who cherish life must unite in finding, exposing, and removing these killers and extremists. And yes, losers. They are losers. Wherever they exist in our societies, we must drive them out and never, ever let them back in. This call for driving out terrorism is a message I took to a historic gathering of Arab and Muslim leaders across the region, hosted by Saudi Arabia. There I spent much time with King Solomon, a wise man who wants to see things get much better rapidly. The leaders of the Middle East have agreed at this unprecedented meeting to stop funding the radical ideology that leads to this horrible terrorism all over the globe. My travels and meetings have given me renewed hope that nations of many faiths can unite to defeat terrorism, a common threat to all of humanity. Terrorism must be stopped in its tracks, or the horror you saw in Manchester and so many other places will continue forever. You have thousands and thousands of people pouring into our various countries and spreading throughout, and in many cases we have no idea who they are. We must be tough, we must be strong, and we must be vigilant. The NATO of the future must include a great focus on terrorism and immigration, as well as threats from Russia and on NATO's eastern and southern borders. These grave security concerns are the same reason that I have been very, very direct with Secretary Stoltenberg and members of the alliance in saying that NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations. But 23 of the 28 member nations are still not paying what they should be paying and what they are supposed to be paying for their defense. This is not fair to the people and taxpayers of the United States. And many of these nations owe massive amounts of money from past years and not paying in those past years. Over the last 8 years, the United States spent more on defense than all other NATO countries combined. If all NATO members had spent just 2% of their GDP on defense last year, we would have had another $119 billion for our collective defense and for the financing of additional NATO reserves. We should recognize that with these chronic underpayments and growing threats, even 2% of GDP is insufficient to close the gaps in modernizing, readiness, and the size of forces. We have to make up for the many years lost. 2% is the bare minimum for confronting today's very real and very vicious threats. If NATO countries made their full and complete contributions, then NATO would be even stronger than it is today, especially from the threat of terrorism. I want to extend my appreciation to the 9/11 Memorial and Museum in New York for contributing this remnant of the North Tower, as well as to Chancellor Merkel and the German people for donating this portion of the Berlin Wall. It is truly fitting that these two artifacts now reside here so close together at the new NATO headquarters. And I never asked once what the new NATO headquarters cost. I refused to do that. But it is beautiful. Each one marks a pivotal event in the history of this alliance and in the eternal battle between good and evil. On one side, a testament to the triumph of our ideals over a totalitarian communist ideology bent on the oppression of millions and millions of people. On the other, a painful reminder of the barbaric evil that still exists in the world and that we must confront and defeat together as a group, as a world. This twisted mass of metal reminds us not only of what we have lost, but also what forever endures: the courage of our people, the strength of our resolve, and the commitments that bind us together as one. We will never forget the lives that were lost. We will never forsake the friends who stood by our side. And we will never waver in our determination to defeat terrorism and to achieve lasting security, prosperity, and peace. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And that was President Trump in Brussels addressing NATO leaders, and now he's meeting for the first time with leaders of NATO, which he once called obsolete. He realizes that we do need to work with NATO, but they need to obviously pay their fair share from their GDP. It's just been insufficient. And really, Trump is the only one to call him on it. Did you hear that slap? Saying that he never asked once how much the NATO building and its backdrop there with the flags cost. I mean, it's over $1 billion, ladies and gentlemen. Over $1 billion. They knew exactly what he was talking about. That was pretty slick. I believe that was a home run and makes me proud. Calling these folks, we can't flip the bill. We can't do it anymore. We got too many bills to pay. It seems like we got everybody else's back. We need somebody to get our back. Work with us a little bit. We've been bailing people out for too long and getting away with it, and everybody's just been nice. Now, people will say about it. Bush talked about it, Clinton talked about it, but nobody did anything. I mean, this is, again, a disruptor in chief. This is a CEO, CFO, watching the checkbook, seeing the bleeding, seeing the spending. He knows what's going on, and it annoys him. And as a good business person does, you check out what the dole is, what's going out. When you're bleeding and you're flipping the bill, that angers you. That upsets you. You know there's something wrong. You got to hold people accountable. And if we've learned something about Washington, accountability is necessary. Big time. This is embarrassing, folks. This is embarrassing because of the leaks, the intelligent leaks coming out, even for the four folks who are trying to comfort loved ones, console loved ones at this time. The Manchester Police Department has temporarily stopped sharing information with the United States on the suicide bombings of Manchester, the terrorist attack that happened over there during the concert, according to Reuters. And this halt in sharing police information with the United States will remain in place until Britain gets assurances that no further leaks will occur. The United States released the name of the terrorists before they did. And this is the garbage that's going on in Washington. That's why Donald Trump said we have to drain the swamp. And this has been going on for way too long. And it's not just the Trump administration, but there is holdovers from the Obama administration. And there were leaks during his administration. There's leaks on a lot of different administrations, but so much more during the Trump administration because they want this president to fail. They don't like him. But whoever's doing this, there's a full-fledged investigation, and Trump says he's going to get to the bottom of this. In a written statement today, Trump called recent leaks deeply troubling, and he said that he's asking the Justice Department and other agencies to launch a complete review of this matter. And Trump added that if appropriate, the culprit, and should I add this, culprits, because it's more than one, should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Now, Trump's comments come amid anger from Britain over intelligence that we just mentioned, these leaks, a decision by the Manchester police to withhold information